If today has felt loud, bright, or demanding, this story is here to help you rest. Welcome, dear one, to Whispers from the Cottage. I'm Marit, and I create gentle sleep stories as small pockets of peace, a place where you can lay down the weight of the day, slow your breath, and remember that you are more than the noise around you. Tonight's story is for women who feel deeply, who give a lot, and who still carry thoughts long after the world has gone quiet. This is a tender story about digital fatigue, that tired feeling that settles in the mind when screens glow too long and the world asks for too much. It follows a woman who steps away from the buzzing lights and discovers a slower rhythm waiting for her in the heart of the night. So settle in, let your shoulders soften, and allow my voice to gently carry you into stillness. Your story begins now, softly, slowly, like a breath returning home. She had felt it long before she admitted it, a slow, creeping heaviness behind her eyes, a kind of tiredness that didn't belong to the body, but to the mind. It showed up in small ways. Forgetting why she opened a tab, reading the same sentence over and over, without truly seeing the words, feeling her attention flutter, like a bird trapped behind glass. Her phone buzzed again, a soft vibration on the blanket beside her, so familiar it almost blended into the air. Another message, another reminder, another tiny demand wrapped in blue-white light. She didn't reach for it, not this time. Instead, she watched the glow of the screen as if it were a miniature sunrise, toward which her thoughts kept tilting, pulled out of themselves. Again and again, her laptop lay open on her bed, casting a thin wash of cold light over her hands. She could see the faint outlines of her fingerprints shimmering on the trackpad, evidence of another long day spent scrolling, typing, responding. The room around her was quiet, yet it felt busy somehow, crowded with information, buzzing with unspoken pressure. She closed her eyes for a moment. Behind her eyelids, she could still see the afterglow of the screen, that pale, electric blue that lingered even in darkness. There was a time when evenings felt different, when silence was a friend and resting was simply natural. But lately, she felt as though her mind had become a hallway filled with open doors, every one of them asking for her attention. And in that tender, honest second, a whisper rose inside her, quiet but unmistakably true. I'm tired in a way the internet cannot fix. The realization didn't frighten her, it simply softened her, made her aware of the weight she'd been carrying and how long she had carried it without ever putting it down. She looked around her dimly lit room, the bedside lamp glowing warm and golden, like a single safe star, a contrast to the cold blue light at her knees. For a moment, she stayed very still, breathing, noticing, feeling the quiet longing for something softer, slower, and more real than pixels. And that is where her journey began, not with a dramatic moment, but with a small, brave truth, whispered to herself in the quiet of an ordinary night. For a while, she simply sat there, surrounded by the dim hum of her room, the soft tick of the clock in the hallway, the low, steady breathing of the world outside. Then something stirred in her, a small impulse, a quiet courage. She reached for her laptop first, not with frustration, not with urgency, but with a kind of tender finality, as if she were closing a book after a long, long chapter. The lid clicked shut, a tiny sound, yet it rippled through the room like a gentle exhale. Next came her phone. Her hand hovered above it, hesitant at first, as though she was touching the edge of a habit she'd leaned on for too long. The phone felt warm from use, almost alive. Little traces of the day still pulsed inside it. Conversations, updates, expectations, waiting in tiny bubbles of light. She turned it over in her palm, feeling the faint vibration still lingering in her fingertips. Then, with one slow, deliberate breath, she pressed the power button. The screen dimmed, softened, and finally faded into darkness. And in that fading, the room shifted. It grew fuller somehow, less crowded by noise, more spacious, as if silence were finally allowed to take a seat beside her. She set the phone down face down on her bedside table. It looked small now, harmless, almost like a tool, not a master. Without its glow, her lamp became the brightest thing in the room, casting warm amber light across her blankets, her hair, her quiet hands. She hadn't realized how gentle the light was until she saw it without the blue glare competing beside it. She stood up slowly, feeling the fabric of her socks glide across the wooden floor. As she walked toward the window, every step felt like sinking deeper into herself. Outside, the rain whispered against the glass, soft, rhythmic, a language she didn't need to translate. No notifications, no badges, no demands, just rain, lamplight, and the quiet hum of her own breath. For the first time in a long while, she felt the possibility of stillness, not as a luxury, but as something she was allowed to choose. Tonight, she would choose it, and her body, her mind, her tired heart, they all softened at the simple, gentle act of turning the noise off. She didn't plan to leave the house. It simply happened the way a sigh happens, or a deep breath that the body takes long before the mind understands why. She slipped into her coat, feeling the familiar weight of it settle around her shoulders, like a quiet reminder that she was still here, still real, still more than glowing pixels and passing messages. When she stepped outside, the night greeted her gently. The rain had softened to a mist, the kind that hangs in the air, like a thin silver veil. Cool air brushed her cheeks, a tender contrast to the warmth of her home. She inhaled deeply. The scent of wet earth and clean pavement filled her lungs, a scent that belonged to something slower, older, and more honest than the digital world she had left behind. Streetlights cast soft halos across the ground, their reflections trembling in shallow puddles. Cars passed in the distance, their engines muted by the dampness in the air, as if the night had placed a gentle finger on every sound. She began to walk with no direction in mind. Her steps were unhurried, light, almost floating, guided only by the quiet rhythm of her breath. As she walked, the noise of the day began to unravel inside her. Thoughts loosened like knots worked free by steady, patient hands. She passed a row of apartment buildings. Behind one window, she saw someone reading by a warm lamp, head bowed, shoulders relaxed, no screen in sight. Behind another, a family gathered around a table, voices soft, faces calm, as though everything that mattered fit inside that single room. She smiled softly. For the first time in weeks, she felt like she was watching life instead of rushing through it. The city moved differently at night, slower, kinder, as if all its sharp edges dulled. Once the daylight faded, her footsteps created small ripples in the puddles beneath her. Each step felt like releasing something, a worry, a leftover thought, a lingering tension stored in her chest. The world around her did not blink, did not buzz, did not ask. It simply existed, and she was allowed to exist with it. There was no timeline here, no urgency, no expectation to respond, only the quiet companionship of the night, gentle as a hand resting on the small of her back, guiding her forward. And with every slow breath, every unhurried step, she felt herself returning, not to a place, but to a pace, her own pace, a pace she had forgotten in a glow of endless screens. Tonight, the night was teaching her again how to move softly through the world. The mist had settled into a fine shimmer by the time she reached the small park at the end of the street. During the day, it was full of children's voices and hurried footsteps, but now it rested, still, like a page the night had gently turned over. She walked a little further, letting her fingertips brush the cool iron railing that lined the path. The air tasted clean, soft, like something freshly washed. And then she noticed it, a glow, warm and golden, peeking through the trees, as if it were shy about being seen. She frowned softly, not in confusion, But in curiosity, she had walked his path many times, yet she had never seen a light there before. As she moved closer, the shape of it appeared. A tiny cafe tucked between two narrow side streets, as though the world had placed it there just for those who needed it. Its windows were fogged at the edges, haloed with warmth from the inside. Soft amber light spilled onto the wet ground, turning the pavement into liquid gold. Above the door hung a hand-painted wooden sign, swaying gently in the damp breeze. Open, she hesitated for a heartbeat, the way one does before stepping into a moment they know will matter. Then she pushed the door open. A tender warmth wrapped around her instantly, as though the room itself had been waiting for her arrival. Inside, everything was calm. A few small tables, their surfaces worn smooth by years of quiet hands. A fire crackled softly in the corner, casting dancing shadows across bookshelves filled with mismatched novels. The air carried hints of cinnamon, warm milk, and the faint sweetness of baked bread. It smelled like comfort, like childhood evenings, like a place where clocks ran slower. There were only a handful of people inside. A woman knitting with slow, steady hands, a man flipping through the pages of a book, as though each word was a treasure. No screens, not one, just presence, real, unhurried presence. The barista looked up. His smile was warm, unassuming, the kind that didn't ask for anything in return. Without a question, he asked, "Warm milk with honey?" She blinked, then nodded. It felt as though the night itself had whispered her order to him. She took a seat near the window. A small candle flickered gently on her table, its flame bending and straightening in a slow, sleepy dance. As she wrapped her hands around the warm mug, heat seeped into her palms and traveled up her arms, like comfort returning to a cold room. That's when she noticed the small card lying beside the candle, a simple rectangle of thick cream-colored paper. She picked it up with gentle curiosity. On it, handwritten in soft, rounded letters, "You are not a machine. You don't have to be always available." She inhaled, not sharply, but deeply, as though something inside her finally had permission to breathe. Below the message, in smaller script, "Rest counts too." Her throat warmed, not with sadness, but with recognition, a feeling like being seen without having to explain anything. She sat there for a while, sipping her drink, feeling the quiet seep into her bones. A slow, steady settling she hadn't felt in a long time. In that tiny cafe with rain-soft windows and candlelit corners, she realized something gentle and true. The world might rush, screens might glow, messages might pile up, but peace still existed. It had simply been waiting in the quiet places, And tonight she had walked right into it. When she stepped back outside, the rain had stopped completely. The air felt newly washed, as if the night had taken its time to cleanse every corner of the world. She paused on the doorstep of the cafe, looking out at the quiet street. Everything glistened. The pavement, the leaves, even the pale glow of the streetlights seemed softer, as though filtered through a gentle dream. She began to walk, and immediately she noticed the difference. Her steps were lighter, not in speed, but in feeling, as if each footprint she left behind was smaller than the one before it, as though she was shedding something with every quiet stride. The city around her had shifted into a gentler form, its edges blurred by the mist, its sounds wrapped in softness. A passing car rolled by like a distant whisper. Somewhere far off, a dog barked once and then fell quiet. She tucked her hands into her coat pockets, feeling the warmth of the cafe still lingering in the tips of her fingers. A small, glowing reminder of stillness found in an unexpected place. As she walked, her thoughts didn't rush or ripple the way they usually did. They floated, soft, slow, like leaves drifting on a quiet stream. She realized she didn't feel the need to reach for her phone. Not out of habit, not out of boredom, not out of obligation. The silence felt full, complete, rich with something that screens never seemed to offer: presence. She passed the row of apartment windows again. Warm light spilled through curtains, and she caught glimpses of small, quiet scenes. A woman brushing her hair, a man washing a single cup, a child fast asleep, a cat curled into a round ball of softness. Life happening at a slower frequency. Life that didn't demand anything. Life that breathed the rhythm of her footsteps, began to feel like a grounding beat, a soft, steady reminder that she was moving through the world on her own terms. When she turned into her street, she felt a kind of peace settle into her chest. Not a dramatic peace, not a sudden one, but a gentle, earned one, a peace that came from choosing quiet in a world that rarely offered it. She reached her front door and rested her hand on the cool metal handle. For a moment, she simply stood there, letting the stillness of the night soak into her skin. She understood something then. She wasn't going back to the same state she had left. The door would open to the same walls, the same bed, the same lamp, but she was different now, softer, more aware, more hers. The night had given her something, or perhaps returned something she had misplaced among notifications and glowing screens. Either way, she stepped inside with a lighter heart. Her home welcomed her, with a stillness she hadn't noticed before, not because it had changed, but because she had. She closed the door gently behind her, letting the soft click seal the outside world away. No messages waiting, no buzzing lights, no silent pressure humming in the background, just the gentle hush of a room at rest. She slipped off her coat and hung it across the back of a chair, feeling the fabric grow lighter as the damp air left it. Her lamp glowed warmly in the corner of the room, casting soft pools of honey-colored light across her blankets, the kind of light that didn't ask anything, that simply illuminated without intruding. She sat on the edge of her bed and felt the mattress dip beneath her. The silence around her was no longer heavy. It was comforting, like a quiet presence sitting at her side. Her phone lay exactly where she had left it, dark, peaceful, unbothered. She didn't reach for it. She didn't even consider it. It felt like an object again, not a lifeline or a leash. She took a slow breath, and within that breath was something she hadn't felt in weeks. Ownership of her time, her attention, her energy. She moved to her nightstand and switched off the overhead light, leaving only the bedside lamp to paint the room in its warm, golden hush. Then she pulled back the blankets and slipped into bed, feeling the sheets cool against her skin before slowly warming to the shape of her body. The world felt very far away, not in a lonely way, but in a gentle, spacious one. She rested her head on the pillow and let her muscles release, one by one, until she felt her body sink, as though the mattress were a soft tide drawing her in. Her mind softened too, thoughts drifting, slowing, settling like snowflakes in the stillness of her chest. She realized that this quiet, this calm, this permission to simply be was what she had been craving beneath all the scrolling and buzzing and responding. Not escape, not distraction, just presence, just breath, just the soft hum of her own being. She closed her eyes, not out of exhaustion, but out of fullness, a tender readiness to rest. And before she drifted away, she held a single gentle truth. She could choose this pace, this quiet, this softness. It was hers now.